for me, it was interesting climbing Sleeping Lion, and I was pushing really hard from, I mean, over a period of like a year and a half or 2 years, pretty much. I was very consistent with my climbing, trying to stay at really high level, even within the process of Sleeping Lion. I mean, I fell from December until the end of March. I was following the last move, so I spent 3 months climbing, like 2 or 3 times a week, climbing essentially like almost a 515C, and
That's
just a
crazy.
very high level of focus, and obviously like just wear and tear on my body. But I think there's this sense, and I was talking to a few different friends about it. When you do achieve those things, you're like, I'm in the best shape of my life. I should utilize this and try to go out and do some other thing, do some other routes. And it sounds really good on paper, but I think mentally, you're kind of shot. Emotionally, you're just kind of exhausted. And things kind of have to be organic. It can't just be like, it's not just as simple as like, I'm going to go. It's not, climbing is not purely mechanical. You have to be actually inspired. And it's not that easy just to shift. So my point is that I haven't spoken to too many people that have been able to do that, like utilize that send high to go just like immediately redirect that onto other projects. But what I found too was that my body I was just kind of exhausted, and I hit a bit of a wall, and my body started kind of telling me like that it needed a break. I started feeling like some joint pain and stuff like that. And it's interesting because I think that's also kind of like, in a way, the universe kind of guiding me to also not lose sight of these other things that I have going on in my life. For me, it was a very intense period this last 7 or 8 years. We started a family, started this company, Sharma Climbing, here in Spain. Building these climbing gyms during COVID was very stressful. And then jumping straight into this whole TV show, The Climb, I really wanted to just get back to my roots of, all of those things were amazing experiences, but they were all really out of my comfort zone. Learning new things. And it was really great to just come back into doing what I do best, which is just going rock climbing. And so it was very good to just like immerse myself in that, to the point where you just get so one-pointed that that's all that you think about. And that's an amazing place to be, but I don't think it's completely healthy to be in that headspace all the time. Having these other responsibilities in life has made me really cherish every day of climbing that I have. And so that being said, it's really good to also take a step back from climbing and be like, oh yeah, there's these other things that are really amazing going on in life that I shouldn't, push to the side. And it's good. There's a time and place for everything, right? And you got to embrace it, embrace things in the right moment.
Well, I really appreciate you sharing that, kind of the push and pull with personal life, but even going more general than that, you've got a long lens on the sport, but you're also, I think, quite an introspective person. You've done quite a bit of work, mindfulness work, and I think you've got a very unique perspective, not just on climbing, but on life. And so I ask all of our guests when they join, what's your relationship with struggle as it pertains to climbing? All right, y'all, just a quick shout out for today's sponsor, which is Zigzag Climbing. Oh my gosh, I wish I had these pads last week when I rolled my ankle falling between two improperly placed pads. Not an issue with the Link crash pad system. This is so cool. Check this out. They're totally modular. So you basically Velcro them together using these Link tape strips, and it's super solid, super tight. No need for a blubber, no cracks. Plus, you can configure them in any way you want. They can go around corners or they can cover up boulders. This is the smartest crash pad system I have ever seen. They are lightweight, sustainable, and affordable. And by the way, if you buy a Link crash pad system in the next week, you could win an extra pad for free. Learn all about that below, and we'll get back to the interview.
It's interesting, what you mentioned about me, and I think it's true that I have done, a lot of mindfulness work and stuff like that, but that doesn't necessarily make everything, and I come across maybe as like a very peaceful person, and I think I am, but there's also this inner fire. There's always like these, different forces at play within us. And I think there has to be that little bit of angst or just like internal struggle forces us to get off of the couch and go do something. It pushes us to do something with ourselves that, to make to give purpose to our life, right? And so I think, it's this balance of finding that, trying to be at peace with, the day-to-day of life, but also you need to have some sort of like of that burning fire that pushes you to do things. And so that little bit of discontentment is important in a way to want to be a little bit unsatisfied. And it's one of the things I talked a bit over the years with Josh Lowe about just the concept of like the suffering artist or something, like or a musician, or like sometimes they have to have this dark side to them that fuels these beautiful works of art, right? And I think there are these two different types of energy that are at play in all of us. So for example, like I've found that my climbing career, or my climbing in general, has just kind of has been a bit cyclical, right? Like where I will have some like pent up need to really achieve something, and I'll that will push me to do something, for me that feels important. And then once I do that, I'll kind of go into more of a more playful side of climbing, and then it kind of repeats itself after. For me, like I did Dura Dura, for example, and it took me 10 years to get back to that place where I was like, no, this has been fun sampling all these different things, but I want to like sink my teeth into something and really like, realize my potential on a route. And so I think it's just, there's always something to struggle with, I guess.
Well, I love hearing that analogy that you made with kind of like the angsty musician or artist, because just recently you sent Sleeping Lion, the hardest route you've ever sent. You're what, 41, almost 42 years old when that happened.
Now. I'm 42. Yeah.
And so now, how does that feel after? Has the fire been subdued? Has the angst been released a little bit, and now you're in a little bit more of an exploratory rebirth stage, or is that fire still there, but it just shifts to something new?
I think a little bit of both a little bit of both. I think it definitely, it's the classic experience that I think most people have with climbing, where you think, if I just do this one climb, I'm going to be happy for the rest of my life. And you invest so much time and energy into it. And then once you finally do it, you realize you're like, just the same, and, struggling with the same things that I, did the week before, right? Maybe even a little bit more, because then you don't even really know what to do with yourself. Like having a project like that really gives a lot of purpose and direction in life. I've definitely found that, and it was so cool that experience to really deep dive back into that process with Sleeping Lion, because just making that commitment, and then it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna go here every week, 2 to 3 times a week. And it just really simplifies everything. And once it's done, though, then you're kind of like, okay, now what do I do with myself? And it is a process of kind of figuring out the next step of things. And I think as amazing as it is to have climbing and that sort of goal to direct you and guide you, it's also important not to be completely dependent on that for our happiness.